Hello, my friends. It is joyous to be with you. Welcome to the Sunshine Study. I am thrilled to have you. If you're coming on, please say hello. It's always a delight to have a bit of moral support, and also if you have a business, if you have a cause, or you need a general help out, I will give you a shout out. And if you want to put your links for your, especially self-employed people, if you want to put your links underneath, please do. Let's get you as much business and awareness as we possibly can. So it's wonderful to be with you. I'm Dr. Rebecca, the Life Joy Coach and author. Welcome to the Sunshine Study. I love golden yellow. Claire, it's lovely to see you. How are you? How's all the family? I hope you're working enough but not too hard. Put your business link underneath, Claire. We're going to do a big self-promotion day today for you. Pat, it's lovely to have you. Thank you for all your wonderful support. Welcome. Well, I'm Dr. Rebecca, the Life Joy Coach and author, and I help people transform their burnout into balance so that they can live more powerfully, more joyfully, and hopefully see their own blessings and immense contentment. Lisa McAvoy, my darling, it's lovely to see you. Welcome. Yesterday and the day before were the warmest days ever this year. And then today it's absolutely misty, chucking it down, really dark and gloomy. So I hope I offer you some light from the Sunshine Study. We love sunflowers because they are tall, they are golden, they seek the light. And when they bend, the whole field holds them up. So they're holding each other, but ultimately they're seeking the light. And I love that philosophy. Now today I've been thinking really carefully about what to talk about. And generally I try and offer you value and wisdom that you can go away and implement in your own lives to make them just an inch better, maybe 2 inches less bad, maybe a bit more joyful, maybe a bit more perspective, so that we can help ourselves to think wisely. And when we think wisely, we speak well. And when we speak well, we write well. And when we write well, we act well. So it's a whole circle of life joy, living well and acting wisely. And when we think wisely, we become quietly powerhouses of goodness. So today is World ME Day, and I could talk about this forever, but the people who are just watching, I want to say the first most important thing. It is the great privilege of my working life and personal life to have a depth of understanding of this that I think is quite rare. The reason I understand is because we've had so much suffering. And I used to use the word struggle because I felt it was less dramatic. But actually, if you look at the facts and feel the feelings, there has been immense struggle in my life. Struggle with illness. There has been immense blessings too, and I can count those till the cows come home. But there are just some very difficult realities about long-term chronic illness. So I'm going to share some things with you about managing energy today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story, which I hope will help you, but far more importantly about what we can do. So, oh, somebody's just messaging me there. Lovely. So here's some things. World ME Day. I use the words ME, myalgic encephalomyelitis. I don't use chronic fatigue syndrome. People with ME will explain what that means really, but ultimately myalgic encephalomyelitis explains the symptoms that hit people. And we're going to talk today about managing energy, mental, physical, emotional and spiritual, managing doctors, managing your life when you have very little energy and you have unpredictable health, but also managing your mind through that. So I hope there's some treasure. I have many post-it notes. This is too important to just wing it, so I hope this helps. And if you're reasonably fit and well, please listen to this, because A, it might keep you well, and B, it will certainly make you treasure that which you have, and probably make you a bit more efficient, because all the things that apply to people with chronic exhaustive conditions apply to healthy people who can just make the most of what they've got or protect the people around them, which is so important. The only thing people want with ME is to get well, and they don't want anybody else ill. So you will know that if I know and love you and you've got glandular fever or COVID or flu or any kind of nasty bug, that I will nag you with great love to rest. Please be careful. That's the only thing that I really want you to say. Do not push if you have any kind of infection. So what happened to me and how did I end up here in a Sunshine Study in a little corner village in Sunderland? Well, I have had a very fortunate, blessed life in many ways. However, illness has chased us, and it's chased us generationally. I had glandular fever at 17. I had been fit, well, strong, hard-working, a good girl, heavily involved in my church. I could practically run up a mountain. Oh, Ruth, darling, it's lovely to have you. Welcome, welcome. We're talking about World ME Day. These are my post-its. I hope this will help. We might go on a bit longer today because this is too important, but I'll come back to these themes time and time again. So I had been a golden girl through my teens in terms of behaviour, in terms of academic success, in terms of trying to be a good girl. Now, Audrey Thompson, it's lovely to have you, my darling. It's World ME Day today. So I had done well. I'd been a very busy child, but I'd also been cherished and nurtured and safe and loved and had a fortunate life. We'd had illness. My dad had ME and we'd had a lot of restriction because of it, but he still managed to go to work. He got promoted. You know, he just couldn't play football, couldn't go running, do the normal things like that. But, you know, he went to work, he looked smart, he looked well, he functioned at a very high level. That doesn't mean there wasn't suffering and difficulty, but he was stoic. There's the word. But when I was 17, I got glandular fever. And because I'd had so much Protestant work ethic in me, really, is I pushed. And that's the single sentence that I could tell you, is that I was really, really unwell. I was desperate to do well in A-levels and go somewhere posh and do a posh degree and do well in the world and contribute. And illness chased me. So I got glandular fever and overnight I was ruined. And I wasn't just a bit tired. I'd gone from having big swollen neck and not very well and in bed, and I tried to go back to school too early. I'd only been ill about 3 days because I couldn't miss. So that's a really important driver for people with chronic conditions, that you lose your sense of perspective because often you're overworking and overgiving. So I just thought I'd cruise through, I'd power through, I'd be fine. Well, I wasn't fine, and the world came tumbling down on my shoulders. And I was suddenly bedridden. I was housebound. I couldn't get to the toilet. My walking was appalling. My balance went, my stomach went, and I won't bore you with those details, but they were not dignified or pleasant. I could hardly go in the shower. I could hardly get off the bed or get to the sofa. And we lived in a relatively small bungalow, so navigating it, you know, it wasn't like somebody having to deal with stairs. So suddenly I'm in this mess, and it's 3 weeks, and it's 4 weeks, and it's 10 weeks, and the world is slipping away from me. And I had the raging sore throat. My chin met my collarbone. It was so swollen and so sore. And under my arms, my glands were so sore. And I just had no energy. So when people say they're tired, I say, okay. And there's tiredness from, you know, having young children and babies and doing night shift. I understand some level of this. But when you sleep, when you have those conditions, you get better. It sorts it. This doesn't get better. It got worse. So in the end, I realised I wasn't going away to university, which was a painful decision for somebody who'd wanted to go so much. Then what am I going to do with these A-levels? I've got all these university offers and I can't even sit up to go to an A-level class. So what I ended up doing was I had 3 months just about flat in that bedroom. And I went back to school for 2 hours a week. I went back on Valentine's Day, I'll never forget that, Valentine's 1992 I think it was. And I went to see my head of house to talk about a timetable of what we could do. And really our discussion was that I would do one A-level and I could go to school 2 or 3 hours a week separately and go to the class, and then I would do that one exam. And somehow, by the grace of God, I managed to do that. So there's a big lesson here. I might have been wiser not to do it, but it kept me sane and I could just manage it. So it's not making me worse. I'm seeing my pals who were just wonderful to me. The staff were wonderful. And I did that one A-level. I have never known difficulty like that. I had a taxi take me. I lay down in the bed, in the back of the seat as a bed in the taxi. I got up, he dropped me on the door, I went to the lesson. Lunacy, I know, but by heavens, I loved that lesson. I sat in the first seat that I got to and I slumped against the wall and my friend took the notes. So what does that tell you? It tells you by the time I get to June to do the A-level, I did the A-level. I did very well because I'd revised well and I also worked the previous 2 years really hard, but you know, that took me weeks of being much worse, having done that big expenditure of energy. So things were becoming very clear that I wasn't improving. I was in a chronic state by this point. GP knew nothing, I had no referrals, and he asked me several times, had I been pregnant, had I taken drugs, and was there anything I needed to tell him? That's all he said, from this pale, frail child who could hardly function. 6 months earlier, I'd been up a mountain. So there was something very wrong, and it was very remiss of him, either not to help, not to look, and not to try. I met monumental ignorance and arrogance, as many people with ME did too. So that's what happened. And then really every day, For the last 32 years, I have had my health chased. Every decision I make now, even though I'm much improved, thank God, how far have I walked? Will I be all right? I better stay away from infection. Better be careful what I eat. All of those things. That's not me being neurotic. It's me being wise and cautious, because if I don't, the payback is monumental. So, short story here. 1 A-level at a time. I went back in the September. I did the next 2 A-levels part-time. And then I crashed at Christmas very, very poorly. I didn't go back to school. But I did one of those A-levels and I just turned up, did the exam, and then had the summer off, went to hospital a lot. So I went to University of Sunderland. Susan, it's lovely to hear you. It's World ME Day, so we're going to talk about energy. Very important that if you're fitting well and you listen to this, this will help you. So I did the second A-level, so I had 2 grade Bs, which were pretty good, and I knew I couldn't go away. I was just so unwell. So I went to Sunderland and I did 3 weeks, and then I went to hospital for almost all the rest of the year. Very bad year, 93. And then I did 1 module in a year that year, which is a joke. That's like 1/6 time. But it kept me sane and I loved it, and the university were magnificent to me. By this time, I found Dr. John Richardson, who was a saint, a saviour and a miracle worker. No longer with us, the late, great John Richardson. I then began to understand that ME and people dealing with long COVID now and fibromyalgia often have chronic fatigue in MS, cancer treatments, Crohn's, people dealing with much restricted energy when they want big lives. So I did that part-time degree. That sounds simple. I did it 1/6 time, I did it 1/3 time for a couple of years, and then by the grace of God, I'd had some treatment and done some pacing and learned some things, and I went up to 2/3 time. And by the end of that degree, doctors were ringing me up to give talks to patient groups and other professionals about my situation. I did a load of fundraising, a load of media, often then a fortnight in bed after it. So I had a very bumpy life. So I was on about 20-25 weeks a year in bed, mainly infection induced because I was so exhausted. I then got a cold or a bug, which then ruined me. So that was a lot of my 20s. But by the end of that first degree, I could stand up and speak in front of a room quite confidently. That's what illness gave me. I had to speak up for other people because I had so many friends who were worse off than me. I had people permanently bedbound, tube fed, on morphine, people who hadn't made it, children whose lives and careers were completely ruined, people who had wonderful working lives and big lives completely flawed. And don't you ever dare say to me about yuppie flu. I wasn't a yuppie, I was a child and I was ruined. I've written a blog about it, please look at it. So in all of this time, I could suddenly see that there was something for me to do, but what on earth do I do? So university very kindly offered me a master's degree, did that part-time, same again, doctorate part-time, lots of bumps in between. But all of the time, I asked myself 2 critical questions. So these are the top tips that I hope will help you managing your energy, however much you've got. The first question is, what are you doing to get well? And that's a tricky question because the world will take your money and promise you everything. Secondly, NHS offers you very little. Thirdly, very little research. Vitally that we have more. And the second question is, what are you doing? Why did you get well? Why did you get ill? They're the critical questions. What are you doing to get well? And what happened to you? And when you start to unpick those questions, you begin to see evidence and tiny patterns of thinking and behaviour. So here we are. The core lesson of all of this is that we have to be more comfortable with the concept of rest and stillness than we ever thought possible. And most people who have ME or chronic conditions want to be busy and up and doing, so it's very, very difficult because there's that drive within you. But you also have to realise that as a culture, we've become very disassociated with understanding rest, peace, stillness, silence, rejuvenation, refilling, and renovation for our minds and our souls. So you have to just realise that. Also, you have to realise at some level that your life is in a season here. It's not all your life, but it may be dominated by health, and that we have to make accommodations for that, difficult as that is, unjust as that is, and it will require great tenacity and courage and resourcefulness. It'll also require a lot of self-discipline and responsibility. But I've yet to meet anybody who hasn't those qualities, who's not putting up with a lot of suffering. So there's the concept of rest. And then you have to realise that you have to cut your cloth accordingly. Most healthy people are living on £100 a day, let's put it like this. And people with ME have got a quid. That's the difference of energy. They've sometimes got £10 and they look reasonably well. And I'm probably like 50, 60 pounds, maybe 70 and £80 days. And thank goodness I look reasonably well now. but my life is still very much compromised. Judy, it's lovely to have you. Welcome. It's World ME Day. I'm just talking about how to manage and save your energy, so it'll fit however your energy is. So that was my first post-it note. I wanted to talk to you about valuing rest as much as we do activity. So here's some stuff about managing your physical energy. Get your sleep sorted out. Please get to bed. Now, this is often a very big thing for people with ME because their hypothalamus and their pituitary and their adrenals are often very mixed up and messed up. So sleep is very difficult. So we control the things that we can manage. So if you can possibly do it, get up and go to bed at the same time every day. Don't sleep in. Don't go to, mess up your sleep cycle. Have a routine before bed and a routine getting up. And even if that's slow or longer than everybody else's, sometimes you need 12 hours, sometimes you need a rest in the afternoon, but just protect that. This is very brief because I've got a lot to get through, but your sleep is the foundation of everything. And I say that to all my healthy clients, even the ones who are just a little bit burnt out. We've got to protect that. That's where all the good mending goes on. We've got to protect the things you can control. What is going inside you? So what are you eating? And I would say that sugary drinks, pop, sugary rubbish, a lot of whitey carbs are not going to do you any good. You have to manage that blood sugar as carefully as you can. I had an absolute foray of food intolerances and quite severe allergies, so I had to be very meticulous about what I ate. So for a good 20 years, I didn't have a sweet, a biscuit, a cake, a scone, a sandwich, anything. I was fastidious. And I had some improvement with all of those efforts, especially the dairy, especially the gluten. Think about what's going into you all the time and what are you drinking. And I would say get the water sorted. Get some daylight if you possibly can to reset your melatonin levels, but also a little tiny bit of movement if you can, even if that's just going downstairs or it's sitting up for a bit. And for the people who are housebound, bedbound and really in a state, things have to be done so mega slowly because the payback is terrible. So I would say if you're just in a real mess, that you just have a slightly higher pillow to just try and sit up. You're not even sitting up, you just go very gently, or maybe over a month, and that you only maybe sit up for a few moments, and then you go back down, because a lot of people with ME have POTS as well, which is a messed up blood pressure issue. So all things gently. And then think about the areas of your health that are causing you the most difficulty. Now for me, I did a little map where I wrote Rebecca in the middle and I wrote all of the symptoms around it and what I could do, because I still had absolutely no help from NHS. And I was beginning to try every kind of private doctor, every functional medicine doctor. I've been to nutritionalists, I've been to the chiropractor, I've been to the podiatrist, I've been to Reiki, you name it, and I've tried it. And I've spent a lot of money doing that. But conversely, I've also done a lot of all of the things that were for free, and those things we mend first, like your sleep. Nobody else can control that, what you're eating, what you're doing. So several things I had problems with, I've tried to do something about. So energy was one, sleep was another, food reactions and infections was another, and I had terrible joint pain as well. And lots of people with ME have joint and muscle problems, myalgic. And one of the things that has helped me enormously is that I have podiatry shoe inserts and I wear them all the time and my joints are better. Now, that wasn't an ME problem, that was a structural problem, but it was written off as an ME problem. So investigate those things too. And think about the pace and the position of everything you do. So I generally, when I'm resting, I have my feet up because then it's less work for my heart to do to pump round. I have beautiful pillows, I have the right kind of duvet. I put effort into where I'm sitting, so all my chairs have arms, so I'm not leaking energy. You very rarely will see me sort of bending down or draining energy on a stool because I need something to prop me up. I can sit up for much longer with a good seat than I can a bad seat. So think about your position and then think about the pace of what you're doing. If you do things gently and slowly, you will get far more done. It's important to think about that and break up the jobs that you're trying to do. So I'll often do washing, but I'll do it in 5 stages. Or I'll do the dishwasher, which obviously I know is a privilege to have, but I'll just do the knives and forks first. I'll leave it, I'll come back midday and do the plates. So think about breaking up big jobs into smaller chunks. The next thing is use your diary. People who are unwell or exhausted need a diary far more than healthy people, because you think, they're busy, they need a calendar or a system, but you need to plan what you're doing. So if I've got something big happening, I do very little the day before. so that I have some energy in my tank and I will have a quiet day afterwards. Now, I've got more energy now. I don't need to plan that as much. But if I've got clients, I'm not killing myself the hour before I've got them, because I want to be well and, able to function for them. When I would go out and do talks or do services, I made sure I had a very quiet night the night before, and I did very little because I had to stand up and perform. But I'd often have to come to bed for the afternoon afterwards. So there was often a thing to be managed. And you also need to realise that if you rest beforehand, it's often a much better investment than resting afterwards. This is like resting afterwards is paying off the loan shark when you've pushed. And to not push, if your body is screaming at you, it's trying to tell you to stop. And most people can push through and improve, you see, in healthy world, but the people with ME whose ATP transfer and mitochondrial function is so compromised, pushing makes it worse. So it's like going into debt. So we want to live in balance as much as we can, and if we have to be in the credit union, that's one thing, but we definitely don't want to be in loan shark land. And then even now, I try and live a very careful, minimal life that don't waste energy. Find the leaks. So I wear leggings because there's no buttons to do up, so they pull straight up. I wear the same trainers all the time. I have Velcro sandals for the summer because they fit my inserts. I generally just wear a top that you can put on, so I never need to mess with buttons. I have toothpaste with a flip lid, so I don't have to screw it. That looks after my joints. I'm not wasting energy doing those things when I could walk or work or be having fun with other things. So the whole of my life is set up to try and keep me as well as possible. The car is automatic. We live in a bungalow. If you think about those big choices, we can't always have those. But I had to make them when I had them. But you can always put a stool in the hallway if you can't walk through. Think about where your punctuation marks need to be and plan and help yourself as much as you can. So, somebody's sending me loads of messages. So, how to manage your mental energy. Often people have a lot of brain fog. So, how to make the most of the brain that you do have and the energy that you have. This will help. Be aware, first of all. Where is your energy going? What are you doing? And who are the people with you in that? You have to be a detective and look for the leaks and the drains. Now, you will have an energy pattern in the day, and yours may be lovely and high and you stay well all the time and your blood sugar be nicely regulated. But if your energy has big dips, look about what you're eating. A lot of proteins and good oily fats will help you sustain that. But also, my mental energy is much better in the mornings, and I can do work from 8 o'clock in the morning, boom, 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 boom. My admin skills are immense. At 4 o'clock, they are not immense. I've worked that out. So I don't do important mental work at 4 o'clock. But I can see clients because my empathy and my heart at 4 o'clock are lovely. It's just that I can't do computer work then, if that makes sense. So I've worked out the timings. I generally see clients at 9, 11, 1 or 4, or punctuations before that, because it gives me a gap between to check dad, to take the dog out if I can, but also to have some recovery time and maybe a bit of movement having been stationary. Plan and track your diary and think about what's a priority. We think everything's a priority until you're unwell. So if you have to manage something big that you really care about and really needs you, marvellous, but delegate the things that you can. And remember, there's a difference between delegation and instruction. And sometimes if you delegate things to good people, they do them better than you could ever have imagined. So be aware of your mental energy. Emotional and spiritual energy. This is an absolute flyby. We've got 6 minutes. The really brave thing to do when you're in trouble, and this took me years to get to, but Dr. Maya Angelou started me thinking this, was to say thank you for this experience. That takes all your nerve when your knees are bending. Help me to get the lesson and help me to grow. So I try in the middle of the tempest and the storms to see, right, that I know there'll be people who would swap with me. I know I'm fortunate. I'm resourceful. Please help me to be as capable as I can and manage this as wisely as I can and get out as soon as I can. And then also what it also allows you to do is it stretches your empathy and your understanding for others, but it also helps you learn to think calmly and bravely. Because when you're in an immense amount of trouble, it's very hard not to panic. But the first thing you have to do is not panic. Find a plan and find where we can go to make it a bit less bad or even a bit better or even just a bit more stable. Now, in terms of your emotional and spiritual energy, I think it needs filling up. I have faith a little bit. It's not enormous, but I keep trying to hang on to it. And when I replenish that, it does me a great deal of good. When I replenish my emotional energy, it's often with peace and stillness and filling myself up with the good things that fill my heart. But you see, the things that used to fill me emotionally, I can't go running. I can't do the long, long walks I used to do. I can't go canoeing. I can't go in the choir. All the things I loved so much are still a miss to me. But I can take pictures, I can message people, I can sew. You know, sewing's quite consumptive of energy if you're very poorly, but it's pretty good if you're all right. So I've tried to find the ways round to replenish myself, reading, trip to the seaside. But we also have to realise that people either give us energy, moderate it, or drain it. So I've had to work very hard that I don't offer to overhelp, overgive, solve problems, put up with disappointing behaviour, or expose myself to appalling behaviour, having had examples. So I'm constantly learning to have wise boundaries, and I hopefully enriched relationships because of it. And one of the things that I notice, particularly with clients who are, chronically ill, is that they're uncomfortable sometimes with feeling a range of their emotions. So it's all right to be angry, it's all right to be cross, it's all right to be frustrated. I'm not saying have a big old drama and a whole load of histrionics and bad behaviour, but it's all right to be annoyed about something and speak up. It's all right to see that something is unjust. And if you feel those difficult emotions, they won't come out in you physically, grabbing your attention. If you think about the tension in your chest when you don't speak up, that's enormous. I often say there's an elephant on my chest here and I'm keeping it buttoned. Now, I can keep it buttoned because I'm either choosing to keep the peace or choosing to be silent. But I also know I can choose to speak up logically and calmly too. And that gives me some more emotional energy. So, next post-it note. Now, in terms of where I've been and what I've done, I have done just about everything to try and get well. I've been to just about every ME specialist there is. And I could list them all. And there's several who've been utterly heroic and had monumental flack from conventional medicine, who want to try and destroy what they're doing, the people who are actually helping us. So I would say, when I talk about functional medicine, I'm talking about people who are trying to put us right, but without a whole lot of really vicious drugs that make us worse. So I am a great believer in vitamins and minerals and supplements. I'm a great believer in your diet. I'm a great believer in trying to put you right holistically, and that the big pharma isn't profiting from. But if you need meds, you need them. So there's a careful balance here too. I've done almost every kind of treatment, as it were, and practitioner. I've done enormous amounts of counselling and coaching and gurus and mentors. I've tried to search my soul out to see who I am and what I can offer and what this experience has taught me. And through all of this, I've had very sick dad, and my mum got early onset dementia in her 50s. It has pounded us. We have had by no means normal life and normal living. We've had snatches of it. And we met somebody a few weeks ago who had worked with my dad. And they were reminiscing, and that person had taught me too. And I could have almost wept at numerous times in the conversation because of all the normality that we hadn't had. And there was a level of grief there that was very profound. And I said to my dad afterwards that our lovely friend that we met had been astonished at the things we remembered. And Dad said to me, yes, because they're the bits of normality we had and the rest of it. And my father's never emotional. He's never dramatic. He's so brave, so wise. And he said, because we'd had so much normality stripped from us. Jean, it's lovely to see you. And when your normality is just housebound, bedbound, carers, sick notes, prescriptions being delivered, can't get food in, it's just grim. That's not part of a world that's easy to live in. So cherish all the health that you've got all of the time. I would also say the point, and there's a lot of controversy about this, about believing you can be improved. I don't believe you can be better overnight quickly, very often. There are miraculous cases where people get really well and it's wonderful and we're pleased for them. Whenever I met anybody with ME, and I've met hundreds and hundreds of people who had any kind of improvement, I asked them what they did to just try and learn. I didn't want to be in a support group. I didn't want to be in groups where people were still chronically poorly and never ever going to get better and believing they wouldn't improve. So I don't talk about getting better. I try and talk about stabilising and see what we can do. And here's the point. Would you take 3% improvement? When you're desperate enough, you would. Would you take a 1% improvement? And all of the things that I work through with clients and all of the things that I do are looking for the 1, the 2, the 3, even 5% improvements. and they are cumulative over time like compound interest. So the more disciplined we are, if you're going to keep drinking Diet Pepsi and having takeaway, you will not be well. You are a very delicate system, and that needs to be cherished and nurtured. So you've got to sometimes do that. And what's the biggest symptom? Try and do something about that. And you have to realise that this is a crusade of courage. That's what this needs every day, to still try and keep your humour, your wit, your generosity and your grace through all of this adversity. Now, last couple of minutes, some top tips. Some of this is difficult because people expect you to be well and you can't do what you used to do. And that's a grievous situation because you want to more than anything. So here's some top tips. Avoid all infections because they're just loading up your immune system. We need to boost your immune system and reduce your inflammation. Learn as much as you can. Read as much as you can from wise doctors, from people. I mean, there's so much now out there. There was nothing when I was first ill. We used to get a little newsletter from the ME Association. It came once every 3 months. But now you can learn about nutrition. You can learn about energy management. Do all that you can. Secondly, avoid infections. Tell people if they've got a cough, a cold, a sore throat, COVID, anything, stay away from you. Do not come to visit and don't expect you to come. It'll make you worse. Mask up. Be wise. Don't put yourself in positions. Don't touch your face. Infection comes from often touching the hands, touching the face. And I'm married to a microbiologist, so he's always on about washing your hands. And sort yourself out. Now, obviously, I can't say this, but I love vitamin C, zinc, folic acid, magnesium, all the other vitamins, especially vitamin B. Think about what you might need. Get them checked. And remember that this is a season in your life. It's not all of your life. So put photographs up from when you were well and put photographs up of where you might like to be. Imagine what you can do to get well and try and do it. I had a room full of photographs when I had all those months in that bedroom because every time I went out, I took a picture because I had to prove that I could do it. And it was a wonderful incentive. And so on a Monday afternoon, sometimes my friends would go to the Student Union bar and I could go on a Monday because I hadn't got any lectures on a Tuesday. And I would go for an hour in the afternoon and sit and have a chat with them and have my water. And they all had loads of beer. And then they'd stay all the rest of the time and I'd come home. But, I took a photograph in that Students' Union bar. It was so precious to me. Every time I went to the seaside and just looked from the car park, it was precious. These small micro blessings. And your life may be dominated by difficulty, but it is not defined by it. It makes you more precious. It makes you braver, wiser, stronger, firmer and deeper. And those things are of great value. And ultimately, my last thoughts on this is that especially if you've got something where there is very little help and little understanding, it is your job not only to educate yourself, but listen and educate others. So the people who really matter to you, who love you and believe you and trust you, they're the ones that matter. It doesn't matter if the woman down the street says, well, you looked fine last week, love, why can't you do it today? Well, if she's saying that, she's ignorant, she's not willing to learn, it doesn't matter. You have to tough up a bit. And if people are persistently difficult, then you have to distance yourself and look after your health more than anything. You may have to educate doctors and you may have to educate healthcare professionals. Be prepared to do it. We're all on a crusade here. You may have to realise that facts, not feelings, get through to people and try and get the outcome you want. You don't need their sympathy. You don't need their validation. You just need the outcome that you need. And remember, there will be ignorance and ill discipline around this, and you just have to hold your nerve, look after your energy, look after yourself, and focus on what you can do to make it better. That may be just grit your teeth and get through a difficult stage. It may be that you make sure that you have a proper afternoon rest, or what you're eating, or what you're drinking, or what you're doing, or that you do a little course that fills you with joy online, or you manage to go to a little Zoom meeting, or you have a visitor for half an hour. These tiny, small things that fill you up. But if they're small, then they won't damage you and you can go gently in all these things. So that's a bit of an energy blitz. I could talk about this forever, but I would say more than anything, value the health that you have, the functioning that you have, do all you can to maintain it and grow it. And I've seen mental decline, I've seen physical decline, and I've done nearly 1,000 funeral services. And when you see all of that, for me, the only thing that matters is my faith, my family, my friends, and my health and my unity are the core values that drive me along. And to have loving purpose now, after all of those years of difficulty, and the difficulty continues, my dad still struggles at an epic level. My mum is not here anymore. Tracy, lovely to see you. We're just talking about managing energy. You might want to look back on this because I think it'll help. Is that there must be loving purpose from adversity and difficulty. And when you can do that, there is some point where some of that, it becomes useful. It doesn't become easy and it doesn't become all right. But if it's useful, it's then powerful. And when you're just powerful in a little way, then you're absolutely on track for where you should be. So I hope all of that's helped. It's used a lot of my energy to talk about it, often on a Friday. Mrs. Taylor is in the room. It's gorgeous to see you, darling. I've just talked about, it's World ME Day today, and I've just done a lot about managing mental, physical, emotional and spiritual energy. If you listen back, I think you'll like it. Ruth, heaps of love. I hoped you would be here. It hadn't come up. Thank you for having me. I hope that's helped. I could do half an hour on this every day, but they're just the sort of main points. And the other thing is, listen, learn, look to contribute. Don't be judgmental and be thankful for all that you have. So, my friends, take care. God bless. Be safe. I hope you have a lovely weekend. I hope you have a restful afternoon. Take care. God bless. Be safe.